Welcome back to the Buddhist Bookshelf YouTube channel. Today, we will resume our reading of the Sorrowless Flower, authored by Ngoc Tran, known as Dharma named Thien Phuc, and this is episode number 34. 462. 30 Types of Impure Giving. According to Venerable Thich Quang in Letters to Buddhist Followers, there are 30 types of giving that are not pure, that the givers will neither gain merits, nor will they be called people who give out of the goodness of their hearts. The first type is to give while having delusional and chaotic views, similar to giving to ghosts, so people will no longer bother them. Otherwise, there is not an ounce of compassion. This also indicates people who give depending on their moods, meaning if they are happy they will give, if they are sad they will not give, or they may ask for it back, or going as far as insulting people while in the process of giving. The second type is to give to return a favor, or to even out a past favor. The third type is to give without having any compassion. The fourth type is to give because of form desire. This is seeing an individual who is beautiful, and so one pretends to give in hope of gaining sexual relations with that person, or give in hope of winning that person as a spouse. The fifth type is to give and then make threats. Make bribes to a person or threaten the person with blackmail, so the individual will not dare go to the authorities. The sixth type is to use poisonous foods to give to someone with the purpose to murder that person. The seventh type is to use knives, daggers, weapons, guns, tanks, bombs, bullets, etc., i.e., military assistance. The eighth type is to give because of praises. The ninth type is to give because someone has a marvelous voice. The 10th type is to give by basing on someone's physical characteristics. These are people who have the unique ability to foretell someone's future based on their physical characteristics. Thus, they may see someone as being poor now, but that person's future is promising, so they give now in order to win that person over, hoping in the future that individual will remember them. The 11th type is to give in hope of winning someone's friendship. The 12th type is to give in hope to learn the tricks of the trade. These are people who realize a person's talents, despite the fact such a person is of lower status, so they pretend to give and befriend such an individual, hoping to steal that person's ideas to benefit themselves. The 13th type is to give, but doubt whether there will be retributions or not. These are people who give but are still skeptical whether their good deeds will bring them benefits in the future. This is a type of giving in hope of something in return. The 14th type is to give, but only after insulting someone until gaining contentment. The 15th type is to give, but thereafter begin having regrets, resentments, and angers. The 16th type is to give and then say to the receivers, in the future you will become servants, slaves, or various animals such as buffaloes and horses, to repay the debts you owe me. The 17th type is to give and then say in the future, I will reap great meritorious retributions of wealth and luxury. The 18th type is to give out of fear of old age, sickness, and death. Meaning when they are young and healthy, the thought of giving never crosses their minds, but when they are old, weak, bedridden, afraid they will be condemned to hell or hungry ghost, only then are they willing to dispense their fortunes to give, hoping to escape their potential fates. The 19th type is to give in hope of being known throughout the land as a great benefactor. The 20th type is to give because of jealousy or to ridicule others. This is giving based on ulterior motives, such as you only gave one, but I gave tens and thousands more, in order to ridicule someone. Otherwise, there is not any purity or compassion in this charitable act. This type of giving is to show off how much power and wealth one has over another person. The 21st type is to give because of fondness for wealth and notoriety. This refers to people who notice a family is wealthy and influential, so they pretend to give hoping to get to know or marry into the family, such as buying gifts, doing favors, etc. The 22nd type is to give in hope of marriage. This refers to people who notice another family as having a boy or a girl who is precious, talented, but that family is poor. Thus, in wishing to marry the child as a husband or wife, these people pretend to give to the family to win the family over. The 23rd type is to give in hope of having a son or a daughter. This refers to people who, despite having wealth, are not charitable people. As they get older but have no children, or have all girls but no boys, or all boys but no girls, only then are they willing to dispense their money to give. However, their giving is not genuine or arising from compassion, because their only intention is to pray to have a child. The 24th type is to give in hope of being wealthy. This refers to people who are already wealthy, so they give more in hope of being even richer. The 25th type is to give in hope that if I give in this life, in the next life I will be rich. This is giving for self-benefit, calculating the loss and gain of this life, the next life, and so forth. The 26th type is not to give to the poor, but spend all of one's focus to give to the rich. This refers to people who show disrespect and have not the slightest compassion for those less fortunate, yet when they see wealthy and influential people, they give readily in hope of befriending these people. The 27th type is to give out of threats and coercion. This refers to people who are wealthy yet they refuse to give. Only when a more powerful person makes threats, if you do not give, I will take your life, are they willing to give. Or if someone discovers hidden secrets and forces them to give, or face the consequence of getting reported to the newspapers, magazines, etc. In fear of being exposed, these people then give as demanded by the opposition. The 28th type is to give for killing and harming. This refers to people who give to wicked and evil beings to win these people over, and then later ask them to kill or harm the enemy. The 29th type is to give while being under fire. On the outside, they appear to be giving, but in the inside the fire of anger rages on. Thus, this is referring to people who feel obligated or having no other choice but to give, otherwise there is not the slightest bit of compassion. Therefore, as they give, they throw the gift in people's faces, insulting them, etc. The 30th type is to give in water of desire. This is giving in order to win the heart of someone beautiful, hoping one day this act will lead to sexual gratification. 463. Opening, demonstrating, awakening, entering. The enlightened knowledge and vision of the Buddha. After mighty and terrible struggles with himself, through meditation, the Buddha had conquered in his body all those natural defects and human appetites and desires that prevent our ability of seeing the truth. Also through meditation, he had to overcome all the bad influences of the sinful world around him. First of all, the Buddha had cultivated the 4 stages of memory, or 4 subjects of reflection, for 4 foundations of mindfulness are related to the 5 skandhas as well as to our body, feeling, mind, and Dharma. Secondly, he had cultivated the 4 proper lines of exertion, or 4 perfect efforts. Thirdly, had cultivated the 4 steps toward supernatural power, or the 4 bases of miraculous powers. The 4th step, he had cultivated the 5 spiritual faculties, or 5 good roots. The 5th step, he had cultivated the power of 5 faculties, or 5 strengths. The 6th step, he had cultivated the 7 degrees, factors, of enlightenment or intelligence. The 7th step, he had cultivated the 8-fold noble path. Like a soldier fighting desperately in battle against many enemies, he struggled like a hero who conquers. He eventually gained his objects. He also discovered supportive conditions leading to Bodhi or Buddhahood. Opening, demonstrating, awakening, entering. The enlightened knowledge and vision of the Buddha are the 4 main reasons for a Buddha's appearing in the world. The first reason is the introduction. Introduction means to disclose, or to open up treasury of truth, or to introduce and open the Buddha's views and knowledge to sentient beings, so they can follow, learn, understand the truths, and clearly distinguish right from wrong. The second reason is the guidance. Guidance means to display or to indicate the meanings of Buddha's teachings, or to teach sentient beings to learn and practice the views and knowledge introduced by Buddhas, to help them know clearly the proper path from the improper path, right from wrong, in order to eliminate the various false views and knowledge. The third reason is the awaken. Awaken means to realize or to cause men to apprehend it, or to be awakened to the Buddha Dharmas, avoid false doctrines in order to escape from sufferings of births and deaths in the 3 evil paths of hell, hungry ghost and animal, and be able to be reborn in the more peaceful and happier realms of heaven and human. The fourth reason is the penetration. Penetration means to enter, or to lead them into it, or to penetrate deeply into the enlightenment fruit of the saintly beings, being able to transcend and to find liberation from the cycle of rebirths. According to the Dharma Jewel Platform Sutra, Chapter 7, the sixth patriarch said, "If you can live among marks and yet be separate from it, then you will be confused by neither the internal nor the external. If you awaken to this Dharma, in one moment your mind will open to enlightenment." The knowledge and vision of the Buddha is simply that. The Buddha is enlightenment. There are four divisions: opening to the enlightened knowledge and vision, demonstrating the enlightened knowledge and vision, awakening to the enlightened knowledge and vision, entering the enlightened knowledge and vision. The sixth patriarch further explained about opening, demonstrating, awakening, entering to Pha Ta. If you listen to the opening and demonstrating of the Dharma, you can easily awaken and enter. That is the enlightened knowledge and vision, the original true nature becoming manifested. Be careful not to misinterpret the sutra by thinking that the opening, demonstrating, awakening, and entering of which it speaks is the Buddha's knowledge and vision, and that we have no share in it. To explain it that way would be to slander the sutra and defame the Buddha. Since he is already a Buddha, perfect in knowledge and vision, what is the use of his opening to it again? You should now believe that the Buddha's knowledge and vision is simply your own mind, for there is no other Buddha. But, because living beings cover their brilliance with greed, and their love with states of defilement, external conditions and inner disturbance make slaves of them. That troubles the world-honored one to rise from samadhi, and with various reproaches and expedients, he exhorts living beings to stop and rest, not to seek outside themselves, and to make themselves the same as he is. That is called opening the knowledge and vision of the Buddha. I, too, am always exhorting all people to open to the knowledge and vision of the Buddha within their own minds. The mind of worldly people are deviant. Confused and deluded, they commit offenses. Their speech may be good, but their minds are evil. They are greedy, hateful, envious, given to flattery, deceit and arrogance. They oppress one another and harm living creatures, thus, they open not the knowledge and vision of Buddha, but that of living beings. If you can with an upright mind constantly bring forth wisdom, contemplating and illuminating your own mind, and if you can practice the good and refrain from evil, you, yourself will open to the knowledge and vision of the Buddha. In every thought you should open up to the knowledge and vision of the Buddha, do not open up to the knowledge and vision of living beings. To be open to the knowledge and vision of the Buddha is transcendental, to be open to the knowledge and vision of living beings is mundane. If you exert yourself in recitation, clinging to it is a meritorious exercise, how does that make you different from a yak who loves his own tail? 464. 10 kinds of demonic obstruction of the formation skandha. According to the Surangama Sutra, the Buddha reminded Ananda about the 10 demonic obstructions of Zen practitioners caused by the formation skandha. The first demonic obstruction is the two theories on the absence of cause. First, perhaps this person sees no cause for the origin of life. Why? Since he has completely destroyed the mechanism of production, he can, by means of the 800 merits of the eye organ, see all beings in the swirling flow of karma during 80,000 eons, dying in one place and being reborn in another as they undergo transmigration. But he cannot see beyond 80,000 eons. Therefore, he concluded that for the last 80,000 eons living beings in the 10 directions of this and other worlds have come into being without any cause. Second, perhaps this person sees no cause for the end of life. And why? Since he perceives the origin of life, he believes that people are always born as people and birds are always born as birds, that crows have always been black and swans have always been white, that humans and gods have always stood upright and animals have always walked on 4 legs, that whiteness does not come from being washed and blackness does not come from being dyed, and that there have never been nor there will be any changes for 80,000 eons. He says, "As I now examine to the end of this life, I find the same holds true. In fact, I have never seen Bodhi, so how can there be such a thing as the attainment of Bodhi? You should now realize that there is no cause for the existence of any phenomena. Because of this speculation, he will lose proper and pervasive knowledge, fall into externalism, and become confused about the Bodhi nature. The second demonic obstruction is the four theories regarding pervasive permanence. According to the Surangama Sutra, Book 9, in the part of the 10 states of the formation skandha, the Buddha reminded Ananda as follows. Ananda, in his practice of samadhi, the good person mind is unmoving, clear, and proper, and can no longer be disturbed by demons. He can thoroughly investigate the origin of all categories of beings and contemplate the source of the subtle fleeting and constant fluctuation. But if he begins to speculate on its pervasive constancy, he could fall into error with four theories of pervasive permanence. Attachment on permanence on the mind and its states. First, as this person thoroughly investigates the mind and its states, he may conclude that both are causeless. Through his cultivation, he knows that in 20,000 eons, as beings in the 10 directions undergo endless rounds of birth and death, they are never annihilated. Therefore, he speculates that the mind and its states are permanent. Attachment on permanence on the four elements. Second, as this person thoroughly investigates the source of the four elements, he may conclude that they are permanent in nature. Through his cultivation, he knows that in 40,000 eons, as living beings in the 10 directions undergo births and deaths, their substances exist permanently and are never annihilated. Therefore, he speculates that this situation is permanent. Attachment on permanence on the sense faculty, the manas, and the consciousness. Third, as this person thoroughly investigates the sixth sense faculty, the manas, and the consciousness that grasps and receives, he concludes that the origin of the mind, intellect, and consciousness is permanent. Through his cultivation, he knows that in 80,000 eons, all living beings in the 10 directions revolve in transmigration. This origin is never destroyed and exists permanently. Investigating this undestroyed origin, he speculates that it is permanent. Attachment on permanence on the thoughts. Fourth, since this person has ended the source of thoughts, there is no more reason for them to arise. In the state of flowing, halting, and turning, the thinking mind, which was the cause of production and destruction, has now ceased forever, and so he naturally thinks that this is a state of non-production and non-destruction. As a result of such reasoning, he speculates that this state is permanent. Because of these speculation of permanence, he will lose proper and pervasive knowledge, fall into externalism, and become confused about the Bodhi nature. The third demonic obstruction is the four upside-down theories. First, as this person contemplates the wonderfully bright mind pervading the 10 directions, he concludes that this state of profound stillness is the ultimate spiritual self. Then he speculates, my spiritual self, which is settled, bright, and unmoving, pervades the 10 directions. All living beings are within my mind, and there they are born and die by themselves. Therefore, my mind is permanent, while those who undergo birth and death there are truly impermanent. Second, instead of contemplating his own mind, this person contemplates in the 10 directions worlds as many as the Ganges' sands. He regards as ultimately impermanent those worlds that are in eons of decay, and as ultimately permanent those that are not in eons of decay. Third, this person closely examines his own mind and finds it to be subtle and mysterious, like fine motes of dust swirling in the 10 directions, unchanging in nature. And yet it can cause his body to be born and then to die. He regards that indestructible nature as his permanent intrinsic nature, and that which undergoes birth and death, and flows forth from him as impermanent. Fourth, knowing that the skandha of thinking has ended and seeing the flowing of the skandha of formations, this person speculates that the continuous flow of the skandha of formations is permanent, and that the skandhas of form, feeling, and thinking which have already ended are impermanent. Because of these speculations of impermanence and permanence, he will fall into externalism and become confused about the Bodhi nature. The fourth demonic obstruction is the four theories regarding finiteness. First, this person speculates that the origin of life flows and functions ceaselessly. He judges that the past and the future are finite, and that the continuity of the mind is infinite. Second, as this person contemplates an interval of 80,000 eons, he can see living beings, but earlier than 80,000 eons is a time of stillness in which he cannot hear or see anything. He regards as infinite that time in which nothing is heard or seen, and as finite that interval in which living beings are seen to exist. Third, this person speculates that his own pervasive knowledge is infinite, and that all other people appear within his awareness. And yet, since he himself has never perceived the nature of their awareness, he says they have not obtained an infinite mind, but have only a finite one. Fourth, this person thoroughly investigates the formation skandha to the point that it becomes empty. Based on what he sees, in his mind he speculates that each and every living being, in its given body, is half living and half dead. From this he concludes that everything in the world is half finite and half infinite. Because of these speculations about the finite and the infinite, he will fall into externalism and become confused about the body nature. The fifth demonic obstruction is the four kinds of sophistry. Further, in his practice of samadhi, the good person's mind is firm, unmoving, and proper, and can no longer be disturbed by demons. He can thoroughly investigate the origin of all categories of beings and contemplate the source of the subtle, fleeting, and constant fluctuation. But if he begins to speculate on what he knows and sees, he could fall into error with four distorted false theories, which are total speculation based on the sophistry of immortality. First, this person contemplates the source of transformations. Seeing the movement and flow, he says there is change. Seeing the continuity, he says there is constancy. Where he can perceive something, he says there is production. Where he cannot perceive anything, he says there is destruction. He says that the unbroken continuity of causes is increasing, and that the pause within the continuity are decreasing. He says that the arising of all things is existence, and that the perishing of all things is non-existence. The light of reason shows that his application of mind has led to inconsistent views. If someone comes to seek the Dharma, asking about its meaning, he replies, "I am both alive and dead, both existent and non-existent, both increasing and decreasing." He always speaks in a confusing way, causing that person to forget what he was going to say. Second, this person attentively contemplates his mind and finds that everything is non-existent. He has a realization based on non-existence. When anyone comes to ask him questions, he replies with only one word. He only says no. Aside from saying non, he does not speak. Third, this person attentively contemplates his mind and finds that everything is existent. He has a realization based on existence. When anyone comes to ask him questions, he replies with only one word. He only says yes. Aside from saying yes, he does not speak. Fourth, this person perceives both existence and non-existence. Experiencing this branching, his mind becomes confused. When anyone comes to ask questions, he tells them, existence is also non-existence. But within non-existence there is no existence. It is all sophistry and does not stand up under scrutiny. Because of these speculations, which are empty sophistries, he will fall into externalism and become confused about the body nature. The sixth demonic obstruction is the 16 ways in which forms can exist after death. Further, in his practice of samadhi, the good person's mind is firm, unmoving and proper, and can no longer be disturbed by demons. He can thoroughly investigate the origin of all categories of beings and contemplate the source of the subtle, fleeting and constant fluctuation. But if he begins to speculate the endless flow, he could fall into error with the confused ideas that forms exist after death. He may strongly identify with his body and say that form is himself, or he may see himself as perfectly encompassing all worlds and say that he contains form. Or he may perceive all external conditions as contingent upon himself and say that form belongs to him. Or he may decide that he relies on the continuity of the formation skandha and say that he is within form. In all these speculations, he says that forms exist after death. Expanding the idea, he comes up with 16 cases of the existence of forms. The seventh demonic obstruction is the 8 ideas about non-existence of forms. Further, in his practice of samadhi, the good person's mind is firm, unmoving and proper, and can no longer be disturbed by demons. He can thoroughly investigate the origin of all categories of being and contemplate the source of the subtle, fleeting and constant fluctuation. But if he begins to speculate on the skandhas of form, feeling, and thinking, which have already ended, he could fall into error with the confused idea that forms do not exist after death. Seeing that his form is gone, his physical shape seems to lack a cause. As he contemplates the absence of thought, there is nothing to which his mind can become attached. Knowing that his feelings are gone, he has no further involvements. Those skandhas have vanished. Although there is still some coming into being, there is no feeling or thought, and he concludes that he is like grass or wood. Since those qualities do not exist at present, how can there be any existence of forms after death? Because of his examinations and comparisons, he decides that after death there is no existence. Expanding the idea, he comes up with 8 cases of the non-existence of forms. From that, he may speculate that nirvana and cause and effect are all empty, that they are mere names and ultimately do not exist. Because of those speculations that forms do not exist after death, he will fall into externalism and become confused about the body nature. The 8th demonic obstruction is the 8 kinds of negation. Further, in his practice of samadhi, the good person's mind is firm, unmoving and proper, and can no longer be disturbed by demons. He can thoroughly investigate the origin of all categories of beings and contemplate the source of the subtle, fleeting and constant fluctuation. In this state where the skandha of formation remains, but the skandhas of feeling and thinking are gone, if he begins to speculate that there are both existence and non-existence, thus contradicting himself, he could fall into error with confused theories that deny both existence and non-existence after death. Regarding form, feeling and thinking, he sees that existence is not really existence. Within the flow of the formation skandha, he sees that non-existence is not really non-existence. Considering back and forth in this way, he thoroughly investigates the realms of these skandhas and derives an 8-fold negation of forms. No matter which skandha is mentioned, he says that after death, it neither exists nor does not exist. Further, because he speculates that all formations are changing in nature, an insight flashes through his mind, leading him to deny both existence and non-existence. He cannot determine what is unreal and what is real. Because of these speculations that deny both existence and non-existence after death, the future is murky to him, and he cannot say anything about it. Therefore, he will fall into externalism and become confused about the body nature. The 9th demonic obstruction is the 7 theories on the cessation of existence. Further, in his practice of samadhi, the good person's mind is firm, unmoving and proper, and can no longer be disturbed by demons. He can thoroughly investigate the origin of all categories of beings and contemplate the source of the subtle, fleeting and constant fluctuation. But if he begins to speculate that there is no existence after death, he could fall into error with 7 theories of the cessation of existence. He may speculate that the body will cease to exist, or that when desire has ended, there is cessation of existence, or that after suffering has ended, there is cessation of existence, or that when bliss reaches an ultimate point, there is cessation of existence, or that when renunciation reaches an ultimate point, there is cessation of existence. Considering back and forth in this way, he exhaustively investigates the limits of the 7 states and sees that they have already ceased to be and will not exist again. Because of these speculations that existence ceases after death, he will fall into externalism and become confused about the body nature. The 10th demonic obstruction is the 5 kinds of immediate nirvana. According to the Surangama Sutra, Book 9, in the section of the 10 states of formation skandha, the Buddha reminded Ananda about the 5 kinds of immediate nirvana. Further, in his practice of samadhi, the good person's mind is firm, unmoving, and proper, and can no longer be disturbed by demons. He can thoroughly investigate the origin of all categories of beings and contemplate the source of the subtle fleeting and constant fluctuation. But if he begins to speculate on existence after death, he could fall into error with 5 theories of nirvana. Because of these speculations about 5 kinds of immediate nirvana, he will fall into externalism and become confused about the bodhi nature. He may consider the heavens of the desire realm a true refuge because he contemplates their extensive brightness and longs for it. He may take refuge in the first dhyana because there his nature is free from worry. He may take refuge in the second dhyana because there his mind is free from suffering. He may take refuge in the third dhyana because he delights in its extreme joy. He may take refuge in the fourth dhyana, reasoning that suffering and bliss are both ended there, and that he will no longer undergo transmigration. These heavens are subject to outflows, but in his confusion he thinks that they are unconditioned, and he takes these 5 states of tranquility to be refuge of supreme purity. Considering back and forth in this way, he decides that these 5 states are ultimate. 465. 10 demonic obstructions of the consciousness skandha. In the Surangama Sutra, the Buddha reminded Ananda about the 10 states of consciousness. The first demonic obstruction is the attachment to causes and what which is caused. Ananda, you should know that the good person has thoroughly seen the formation skandha is empty, and he must return consciousness to the source. He has ended production and destruction, but he has not yet perfected the subtle wonder of ultimate serenity. He can cause the individual sense faculties of his body to unite and open. He also has a pervasive awareness of all categories of beings in the 10 directions. Since his awareness is pervasive, he can enter the perfect source. But as he regards what he is returning to as the cause of true permanence, and interprets this as a supreme state, he will fall into the error of holding to that cause. Kapila the Sankhyan, with his theory of returning to the truth of the unmanifest, will become his companion. Confused about the bodhi of the Buddhas, he will lose his knowledge and understanding. This is the first state, in which he concludes that there is a place to which to return, based on the idea that there is something to attain. He strays far from perfect penetration and turns his back on the city of nirvana, thus sowing the seeds of externalism. The second demonic obstruction is the attachment to ability that is not actually ability. Further, Ananda, the God person, has thoroughly seen the formation skandha is empty. He has ended production and destruction, but he has not yet perfected the subtle wonder of ultimate serenity. He may regard that to which he is returning as his own body, and may see all beings in the 12 categories throughout space as flowing forth from his body. If he interprets this as a supreme state, he will fall into the error of maintaining that he has an ability which he does not really have. Maheshvara, while manifests his boundless body, will become his companion. Confused about the bodhi of the Buddhas, he will lose his knowledge and understanding. This is the second state, in which he draws conclusions about the workings of an ability based on idea that he has such an ability. He strays far from perfect penetration and turns his back on the city of nirvana, thus sowing the seeds for being born in the heaven of great pride, where the self is considered all-pervading and perfect. The third demonic obstruction is the attachment to a wrong idea of permanence. Further, the good person has thoroughly seen the formation skandha is empty. He has ended production and destruction, but he has not yet perfected the subtle wonder of ultimate serenity. If he regards what he is returning to as a refuge, he will suspect that his body and mind come forth from there, and that all things throughout space in the 10 directions arise from there as well. He will explain that from which all things issue forth is the truly permanent body, which is not subject to production and destruction. While still within production and destruction, he prematurely reckons that he abides in permanence. Since he is deluded about non-production, he is also confused about production and destruction. He is sunk in confusion. If he interprets this as a supreme state, he will fall into the error of taking what is not permanent to be permanent. He will speculate that the sovereign God, Ishvaradeva, is his companion. Confused about the bodhi of the Buddhas, he will lose his knowledge and understanding. This is the third state, in which he makes a false speculation based on the idea that there is a refuge. He strays far from perfect penetration and turns his back on the city of nirvana, thus sowing the seeds of a distorted view of perfection. The fourth demonic obstruction is the attachment to an awareness that is not actually awareness. Further, the good person has thoroughly seen the formation scanned as empty. He has ended production and destruction, but he has not yet perfected the subtle wonder of ultimate serenity. Based on his idea that there is universal awareness, he formulates a theory that all the plants in the 10 directions are sentient, not different from human beings. He claims that plants can become people, and that when people die they again become plants in the 10 directions. If he considers this idea of unrestricted universal awareness to be supreme, he will fall into the error of maintaining that what is not aware has awareness. Vasishtha and Sainika, who maintain the idea of comprehensive awareness, will become his companions. Confused about the body of the Buddhas, he will lose his knowledge and understanding. This is the fourth state, in which he draws an erroneous conclusion based on the idea that there is a universal awareness. He strays far from perfect penetration and turns his back on the city of nirvana, thus sowing the seeds of a distorted view of awareness. The fifth demonic obstruction is the attachment to birth that is not actually birth. Further, the good person has thoroughly seen the formation scanned as empty. He has ended production and destruction, but he has not yet perfected the subtle wonder of ultimate serenity. If he has attained versality in the perfect fusion and interchangeable functioning of the sense faculties, he may speculate that all things arise from these perfect transformations. He then seeks the light of fire, delights in the purity of water, loves the wind's circuitous flow, and contemplates the accomplishments on the earth. He reveres and serves them all. He takes these mundane elements to be a fundamental cause and considers them to be everlasting. He will then fall into the error of taking what is not production to be production. Kashyapa and the Brahmins who seek to transcend birth and death by diligently serving fire and worshipping water will become his companions. Confused about the body of the Buddhas, he will lose his knowledge and understanding. This is the fifth state, in which he confusedly pursues the elements, setting up a false cause that leads to false aspirations based on speculations about his attachment to worship. He strays far from perfect penetration and turns his back on the city of nirvana, thus sowing the seeds of a distorted view of transformation. The sixth demonic obstruction is the attachment to a refuge that is not actually a refuge. Further, the good person has thoroughly seen the formation scanned as empty. He has ended production and destruction, but he has not yet perfected the subtle wonder of ultimate serenity. He may speculate that there is an emptiness within the perfect brightness, and based on that he denies the myriad transformations, taking their eternal cessation as his refuge. If he interprets this as a supreme state, he will fall into the error of taking what is not a refuge to be a refuge. Those abiding in the shunyata of the heaven of neither thought nor non-thought will become his companions. Confused about the body of the Buddhas, he will lose his knowledge and understanding. This is the sixth state, in which he realizes a state of voidness based on the idea of emptiness within the perfect brightness. He strays far from perfect penetration and turns his back on the city of nirvana, thus sowing the seeds of annihilationism. The seventh demonic obstruction is the attachment to an attainable craving. Further, the good person has thoroughly seen the formation scanned as empty. He has ended production and destruction, but he has not yet perfected the subtle wonder of ultimate serenity. In the state of what seems to be perfect permanence, he may bolster his body, hoping to live for a long time in that subtle and perfect condition without dying. If he interprets this as a supreme state, he will fall into the error of being greedy for something attainable. Asita and those who seek long life will become his companions. Confused about the body of the Buddhas, he will lose his knowledge and understanding. This is the seventh state, in which he sets up the false cause of bolstering and aspires to permanent worldly existence based on his attainment to the life source. He strays far from perfect penetration and turns his back on the city of nirvana, thus sowing the seeds for false thoughts of lengthening life. The eighth demonic obstruction is the attachment to truth that is not actually truth. Further, the good person has thoroughly seen the formation scanned as empty. He has ended production and destruction, but he has not yet perfected the subtle wonder of ultimate serenity. As he contemplates the interconnection of all lives, he wants to hang on to worldly enjoyments and is afraid they will come to an end. Caught up in this thought, he will, by the power of transformation, seat himself in a lotus flower palace, conjure up an abundance of the seven precious things, increase his retinue of beautiful women, and indulge his mind. If he interprets this as a supreme state, he will fall into the error of taking what is not the truth to be the truth. Vignakara will become his companion. Confused about the bodhi of the Buddhas, he will lose his knowledge and understanding. This is the eighth state, in which he decides to indulge in worldly enjoyments, based on his wrong thinking. He strays far from perfect penetration and turns his back on the city of nirvana, thus sowing the seeds for becoming a demon of the heavens. The ninth demonic obstruction is the fixed nature hearers. Further, the good person has thoroughly seen the formation scanned as empty. He has ended production and destruction, but he has not yet perfected the subtle wonder of ultimate serenity. In his understanding of life, he distinguishes the subtle and the coarse, and determines the true and the false. But he only seeks a response in the mutual repayment of cause and effect, and he turns his back on the way of purity. In the practice of seeing suffering, eliminating accumulation, realizing cessation, and cultivating the way, he dwells in cessation and stops there, making no further progress. If he interprets this as a supreme state, he will fall and become a fixed nature hearer. Unlearned Sanghins and those of overweening pride will become his companions. Confused about the bodhis of the Buddhas, he will lose his knowledge and understanding. This is the ninth state, in which he aspires toward the fruition of cessation, based on perfecting the mind that seeks responses. He strays far from perfect penetration and turns his back on the city of nirvana, thus sowing the seeds for becoming enmeshed in emptiness. The 10th demonic obstruction is the fixed nature pratikas. Further, the good person has thoroughly seen the formation scanned as empty. He has ended production and destruction, but he has not yet perfected the subtle wonder of ultimate serenity. In that perfectly fused, pure bright enlightenment, as he investigates the profound wonder, he may take it to be nirvana and fail to make further progress. If he interprets this as a supreme state, he will fall and become a fixed nature pratika. Those enlightened by conditions and solitary enlightened ones who do not turn their minds to the great vehicle will become his companions. Confused about the bodhi of the Buddhas, he will lose his knowledge and understanding. This is the 10th state, in which he realizes a profound brightness based on fusing the mind with perfect enlightenment. He strays far from perfect penetration and turns his back on the city of nirvana, thus sowing the seeds for being unable to surpass his attachment to the brightness of perfect enlightenment. 466. 5 faculties. The 5 sense organs can be entrances to the hells. At the same time, they can be some of the most important entrances to the great enlightenment, for with them, we create karmas and sins, but also with them, we can practice the right way. The first faculty is the faith or virtue of belief, sradhandriya or sadapi. Sense of belief in the triple gem and the Four Noble Truths. The second faculty is the energy, vigor, or virtue of active vigor, viryendriya. Sense of endeavor or vigor to cultivate good deeds. The third faculty is the sense of memory, means right memory or mindfulness. The mind that always focuses upon the Buddha. Practically speaking, of course, it is impossible for us to completely forget the Buddha for even a moment. When a student devotes himself to his studies or when an adult is entirely absorbed in his work, he must concentrate on one object. Doing so accords with the way to Buddhahood. While devoting ourselves to a particular object, we reflect, I am caused to live by the Buddha. When we complete a difficult task, we feel relieved, we thank the Buddha, saying, how lucky I am. I am protected by the Buddha. When an evil thought flashes across our mind or we suddenly feel angry, we instantly examine ourselves, thinking, is this the way to Buddhahood? The mind that thus keeps the Buddha in mind at all times is sense of memory. Mindfulness recognizes, is aware of its presence, accepts and allows it to be there. Mindfulness is like a big brother who does not suppress his younger brother's suffering. He simply says, "Dear brother, I'm here for you." You take your younger brother in your arms and you comfort him. This is exactly our practice. Mindfulness does not fight anger or despair. Mindfulness is there in order to recognize. To be mindful of something is to recognize that something is the capacity of being aware of what is going on in the present moment. According to most Venerable Thich Nhat Hanh, in anger the best way to be mindful of anger is when breathing in I know that anger has manifested in me, breathing out I smile towards my anger. This is not an act of suppression or of fighting. It is an act of recognizing. Once we recognize our anger, we are able to take good care of it, or to embrace it with a lot of awareness, a lot of tenderness. The fourth faculty is the visionary meditation. Visionary meditation means samadhi, or virtue of concentration. The sense of meditation implies a determined mind. Once we have faith in a religion, we are never agitated by anything, whatever may happen. We bear patiently all persecution and temptation, and we continue to believe only in one religion. We must constantly maintain such firm determination, never becoming discouraged. We cannot be said to be real people with a religious faith unless we have such a mental attitude. The fifth faculty is the virtue of wisdom or awareness, prajnandriya. Sense of wisdom or thinking of the truth. The wisdom that people of religion must maintain. This is not a self-centered wisdom, but the true wisdom that we obtain when we perfectly free ourselves from ego and delusion. So long as we have this wisdom, we will not take the wrong way. We can say the same thing of our belief in religion itself, not to mention in our daily lives. If we are attached to a selfish, small desire, we are apt to stray toward a mistaken religion. However, earnestly we may believe in it, endeavoring to practice its teaching, keeping it in mind, and devoting ourselves to it, we cannot be saved because of its basically wrong teaching, and we sink farther and farther into the world of illusion. There are many instances around us of people following such a course. Although sense of wisdom is mentioned as the last of the 5 organs leading man to good conduct, it should be the first in the order in which we enter a religious life. 467. Real dana. The Buddha always reminded the 4 assemblies regarding dana with wish be repaid for good deeds, good results in the human and deva worlds, and real dana in Buddhism. First, Buddhists perform charity with generosity and with a pure mind which is freed from greed, hatred, and delusion, can produce good results in the human world and the world of celestial beings. A person of generosity can be reborn in the realm of the devas and stay there for so long. However, the benefit of mundane result is still within the cycle of birth and death. Second, usually people wish be repaid when granting or doing someone a favor. However, in Buddhism, when giving charity, one does not cherish the thought that he is the giver, and sentient beings are the receivers, what is given and how much is given, thus, in one's mind, no arrogance and self-conceit would arise. This is an unconditioned alms-giving or compassion on a equality basis. The Buddha taught, one should not wish to be repaid for good deeds. Doing good deeds with an intention of getting repayment will lead to greed for fame and fortune. If you do good, then do it for the sake of doing service to some other beings. The happiness which arises in your mind together with the performance of the good deed is itself an extremely big reward. 468. Great giving. Great giving is the giving that will bring the benefactors great meritorious retributions in this life and next life. There are 13 kinds of great giving. First, giving at the right time and moment. This means to give with perfect timing when someone is in desperate need. Second, giving to those who cultivate the proper path. This means to give to those who are on the path of enlightenment in Buddhism, which is to give to ordained Buddhists whose cultivated conducts are true and consistent with the Buddha's teaching. Third, giving to the ill and the healer. Fourth, giving to those who speak and elucidate the proper Dharma of Buddhism, i.e., Dharma masters who teach the sutras and propagate the Buddha Dharma. Fifth, giving to those who are about to go on a long journey. 6th, to give to a king who has lost the throne and is searching for safety to evade the enemy. 7th, to give to those who are helpless against authority. 8th, to give to those who are handicapped, those enduring pain, suffering, and torture. 9th, to give to bhikshus and bhikshunis who maintain their virtuous precepts at the right time and moment. 10th, to give to those who cultivate for wisdom, i.e., those who practice mendicant conducts, having peace and purity in the isolated mountains and forests, praying to attain wisdom of enlightenment. Thus, there are not people who cultivate in luxury and wealth in great cities who enjoy all modern conveniences. 11th, to give to various animals, i.e., birds, fish, etc. 12th, to encourage others to give or rejoice in seeing others give. This means if one is unable to give because one has no means or ability to give, yet when seeing others give, one is able to rejoice and be happy for the giver by praising that person. The Buddha called this rejoice in others' virtues and merits. This is important because sometimes when people cannot give but seeing others give makes them extremely uneasy. As Buddhists, it is important to avoid this selfish nature. 13th, to sacrifice one's life to save another person's life. 469. Why should we practice giving? According to Venerable Thich Hoi Quang in Letters to Buddhist Followers, there are 14 reasons for us to practice giving. The first reason, giving possessions are truly what is ours, but remaining possessions inside our homes really not belong to us. This is true because the wholesome retributions of giving will be with us forever from life to life. Therefore, they are ours. In contrast, the possessions inside our homes are not really ours, but they belong to the following 5 masters. Floodwater will rise to take away everything, raging fire will burn down everything, family and relatives waste and destroy, corrupted officials, bandits and thieves will take away everything, and spending for medications for sicknesses. The second reason, given possessions are secured, but remaining possessions are not secured. For possessions that have been given will have their own appropriate retributions holding them for us for many lives to come without being lost. No matter where we are born in whatever life, they will always follow us, as stated in the law of karma, whatever you do, it will find its way back to you. Whereas, possessions that have not been given may be taken by the above-mentioned 5 masters in 1. The third reason, given possessions do not need to be safeguarded, but remaining possessions must be safeguarded. For possessions that are given will now belong to others, and it is up to them to safeguard their possessions. We do not have to worry about safeguarding those possessions any longer. Whereas, remaining possessions in our homes must be carefully watched because if we don't, we fear they will be taken away from us. The fourth reason, given possessions are the happenings of the future, but remaining possessions are only the happenings of the present. This means if we give in this life, then in the next life or many future lives after, the meritorious retributions from giving will follow us and we will always have wealth and luxury. Whereas the remaining possessions, things that we have not given or we are not willing to give, will bring us wealth, luxury, and happiness in the present life. The fifth reason, given possessions, will no longer be bound by greedy desires, whereas remaining possessions will increase greed. This means if we are able to give, then we will be able to eliminate our greedy desires toward money and possessions. However, the remaining possessions will increase our greed and attachment to them. The sixth reason, given possessions are no longer worrisome, but remaining possessions are worrisome. If possessions that are given away, it is no longer necessary for us to worry or think about them, but if they remain, here will be constant worrying that someday they will be taken away from us. The seventh reason, given possessions are no longer feared, but remaining possessions must be feared. If possessions are given, then there is no fear that the 5 masters will steal from us, but if they remain, they will make us fearful and anxious that the 5 masters can come and steal them away at any moment. The eighth reason, given possessions are the pillars of the proper path, but remaining possessions are the pillars of the devil. If we give, then one day we will attain the giving paramita and become a Mahabodhisattva, while remaining possessions due to stinginess and frugality will result in being a hungry ghost in the next life. The ninth reason, given possessions are boundless, but remaining possessions are limited. This means possessions that are given will be the meritorious retributions for many reincarnations to come, but remaining possessions are limited and will only be available in this life, but will not be there in the next. The 10th reason, given possessions will bring happens, but remaining possessions will cause sufferings because they must be safeguarded. The 11th reason, given possessions will lead to greater freedom, but remaining possessions will lead to greater imprisonment. If we are able to give, then, though we are still bound, we have freedom to some degree, but remaining possessions will entrap us even more, so no matter where we go, we are always worrying about them. The 12th reason, given possessions are meritorious, but remaining possessions are not meritorious because someday we will spend them all. The 13th reason, given possessions are the practices of a great gentleman, but remaining possessions are not the practices of a great gentleman. Only a person who is truly a great gentleman will know to give, while a pretender will never know to give, but will maintain and hold on to everything he or she owns. The 14th reason, given possessions are praised by the Buddha, but remaining possessions are praised by ordinary people. This means those who give accord with the minds of the Buddhas of infinite compassion, so these people are praised by the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. Those who are selfish and stingy accord with the minds of ordinary people, and will be praised by ordinary people. They will not be praised the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. 470. Thoughts arise when there are people coming to ask for charity. According to Venerable Thich Quang in the Letters to Buddhist Followers, the Buddha taught that lay Buddhists bodhisattvas should practice the conduct of giving. When someone comes to ask for assistance, it is important to give rise to the following thoughts in order to avoid having regrets, sadness, anger, or giving rise to various thoughts of greed, hatred, and ignorance toward the receiver of charity, only to decrease or lose the virtues and merits they would have obtained from the acts of practicing charity. First, following the teachings of the Buddha. When someone needs assistance, we should use the sincere mind to think that all the Buddhas in the 10 directions across the 3 time spans of past, present, and future are able to attain the ultimate enlightenment because of their ability to fully realize the giving paramita. Now that we are Buddha's children, if we wish to attain enlightenment or to become Buddha, it is absolutely essential for us to follow the Buddha's teachings. We should practice his teachings. We must diligently cultivate the conduct of giving in order to eliminate various mind states of greed, selfishness, and stinginess. In this way, our practice of giving of today demonstrate we are following the teachings of the Buddhas. Second, giving rise to the thought that asking person is a good knowledgeable advisor. When someone comes and asks for assistance, we should think, from many lives in the past until now, we have been unbelievably greedy and stingy. Thus, gathering and accumulating as much as possible are the only things we have known, while we refuse to give and let go of anything. Or even when we did give, we still feel regrets and sadness later, or we may have given, but our minds were not peaceful and joyous while giving. Therefore, we continue to remain as unenlightened mortals drifting and drowning in the 6 realms of the cycle of rebirths. If we are like this in this life, who knows what we will be like in the next life? Where are all of our possessions from the former lives? It will be the same way with the possessions of this life, because once we die, we must leave behind everything, as we will not be able to bring anything along with us. Fortunately, in this life, we are knowledgeable of Buddhism, we know clearly the Buddha's teachings with regard to the conducts of giving. So why should we not courageously practice what we know in order to eliminate our old selfish greedy habits? Now immediately after we have just developed our minds to carry out the conduct of giving, someone comes to ask for assistance. It is truly a good opportunity. Because owing to this person we are able to abandon the greed and selfishness that have followed us from the infinite past to the present, we are able to accomplish the mind of letting go, and the giving conduct of a saintly being. We will be able to accomplish the various fruits of enlightenment and liberation in the future. The person who has asked us is truly our good knowledgeable advisor. our benefactor, as well as our cause for enlightenment. If one is able to give rise to and hold on to these thoughts, that good charitable person will feel happy and honored from giving, without having the slightest worries and regrets. Third, giving rise to the thought of wealth and luxury in another life, or attaining the meritorious retributions in the desire world. When seeing the needy person approaching us, we should hold the following thought. Just as the Buddha taught, all conducts of giving will result in wholesome retributions. This means one will be a wealthy person reaping merits in the human realm, or will be born in heaven to be a heavenly being with complete supreme blessings of the heaven. Talking about the merits and virtues of the conduct of giving, if we practice conduct of giving, even if our minds do not give rise to the wish of being rich and wealthy in the future in heaven or human realms, those meritorious retributions from giving will come to us naturally. In the present life, we are wealthy, having extra money to spend on nice cars, homes, etc. Because in the former life, we practiced giving. Thus, in this life we are able to reap the wholesome karmic retribution in this way. If we just look to the outside world and our surrounding, it will be obvious how many people live in poverty, not having enough of anything, but must struggle to make it from day to day. It is because in their former lives, these people were consumed with greed, stinginess, and never opened their hearts to give to anyone. Consequently, in this life, they must suffer and struggle in poverty as their karmic retributions. We are fortunate to be able to rely on the wholesome karma of the past, enabling us to live luxurious lives. Therefore, we should give more so that the wholesome merits of the present will increase with each passing day. And in the future lives, we will avoid the karmic consequences of not having enough. If one is able to hold these thoughts that are true to the proper Dharma, the good person will feel happy and honored to give without having sadness, regrets, and resentments. Fourth, when someone asks us for assistance, we should think that practicing the conduct of giving will help us eliminate the two evil characteristics of greed and stinginess. Fifth, look upon those who ask for charity as family and friends. When someone asks for assistance, we should think that from infinite past till now, in the 6 realms in the cycle of rebirths, sentient beings continue to follow their karmic actions to go up and down constantly, changing their appearances. Sometimes they are relatives and friends, but once they pass on to another life, covered by ignorance, they are no longer able to recognize one another. Today we develop the mind to give because those asking for assistance can very well be our family and friends of the past, or, who knows, it is possible, in the future lives they will become a part of our immediate or extended family. Having these thoughts, we should be happy to give without the slightest regrets or feel we have given in vain. Sixth, in the process of endless births, gives rise to the thought of liberation. When someone asks us for assistance, we should think that all Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, as well as other greatly enlightened sages, were able to attain the Bodhi mind and are liberated from the cycle of rebirths because they were able to attain the conduct of giving paramita. Owing to the fact that they have achieved the giving paramita, these greatly enlightened beings are able to eliminate the cycle of reincarnations. As for us, sentient beings, in the near future we will abandon this body, and then we will be born with another body in another life, and will continue to go up and down in the 6 realms of the cycle of rebirths. In this way, from infinite and endless eons ago to the present, we have lived and died and lived, and yet we are still unable to free ourselves from this vicious cycle of birth and death. Therefore, in this life, we must be determined to develop the vow to practice the conduct of giving without regression. All sentient beings who come to us for assistance are our benefactors and are great opportunities for us to attain the giving paramita in the future. Only practicing this we will be able to attain enlightenment and find liberation from infinite and endless lives of births and deaths in the future. 7th, using the conduct of giving as a means of assistance to all sentient beings. 8th, giving rise to the thought of attaining the path of enlightenment. When we see a needy person approaching us, we want to hold the following thoughts. Among the 6 paramita practices attained by Mahabodhisattvas and the Buddhas, the giving paramitas is first. These virtuous beings are able to attain the giving paramita because they have often carried out the conducts of giving with a non-retrogression mind in infinite and innumerable kalpas in the past, but are never tired, bored, nor will they rest and stop such practices. Therefore, they are to accumulate infinite, endless, and unimaginably supreme meritorious retributions. If those who meritorious retributions were used to give to all the sentient beings in the 10 directions of infinite universes for infinite and innumerable kalpas, they would still have some left. The meritorious blessing of the Mahabodhisattvas are inherently limitless. Furthermore, at the present time, they have attained the various enlightened stages of Mahabodhisattvahood and are on their way to the realization of the ultimate enlightenment. As lay Buddhists cultivating for bodhisattvahood, we should also follow these enlightened beings' virtuous paths. This means we should work within our means and limitations to practice the conduct of giving. If our conducts of giving result in any wholesome, virtuous, or meritorious consequences, then we should not vow or pray to be reborn in the heaven or human realms in order to reap those meritorious retributions. This is because no matter how much pleasure we may enjoy from those wholesome meritorious retributions in the heaven and human realms, in the end, we will be able to escape and free ourselves from the cycle of birth-death. In contrast, we should be determined to dedicate all those merits and virtues to adorn our future state of ultimate enlightenment. We continue to give without resting. 471. The merits of almsgiving. The Buddha always reminded lay people about the merits of almsgiving to the poor and the needy, or offer gifts to a bhikkhu or community of bhikkhus. Offer gifts to bhikkhu or community of bhikkhus. Offerings to the monks and the nuns, necessary things for a monastic living from lay Buddhists, clothes, food, medicine, blankets, etc. Monks and nuns should always remember their debts to the givers are so heavy that even a grain of rice weighs the weight of a Sumeru mountain. Once monks and nuns renounced their worldly life, they totally depend on the people who make charitable donations such as clothes, food, medicine, and blankets. These givers work hard to make their living, to take care of themselves, and to support the order. Sometimes, no matter how hard they work, yet they don't have enough to live on. Lay Buddhists are sometimes homeless, yet they still save money to support the Sangha. For those reasons, if the Sangha misuse the money or whatever offered, then every seed of rice, every millimeter of fabric shall have their debts. If the monks and the nuns don't do their best to cultivate themselves and help liberate others, whatever they receive in this life must be repaid in the next reincarnation to the fullest by becoming slaves, or being dogs, pigs, cows, water buffaloes, etc. 472. Merits and virtues of giving in the Earth Store Bodhisattva Sutra. According to the Earth Store Bodhisattva Sutra, Chapter 10, the Buddha taught on conditions comparative merits and virtues of giving. The Buddha taught, in Jambudvipa, the kings of countries, noblemen, great minister, great elder, great kshatriyas, great brahmins and others, may encounter the most inferior and poor people, or those with various handicaps, such as being hunchbacked, crippled, dumb, mute, deaf, retarded or eyeless, blind. When those kings and other wish to give, they may be able to replete with great compassion, a humble heart and a smile. They may everywhere give personally with their own hands or arrange for other to do so, using gentle words and sympathetic speech. Such kings and others will obtain blessings and benefits comparable to the meritorious virtue of giving to as many Buddhas as there are grains of sand in 100 Ganges rivers. Why is this? Because of having shown a great compassionate heart toward the most impoverished, inferior and handicapped individuals, the kings and others will receive such a reward. For 100,000 lives, they will always have an abundance of the 7 gems, not to mention clothing, food, and the necessities of life. If in the future, the kings, Brahmins and the others encounter Buddha stupas, monasteries, or images of Buddhas, Bodhisattvas, Sravakas, or Pratika Buddhas and personally make offerings or give gifts, the kings and other will obtain 3 eons as Lord Sharka, and will enjoy supremely wonderful bliss. If they are able to transfer the blessing and benefits of that giving and dedicate it to the Dharma realm, those great kings and others will be great Brahma heaven kings for 10 eons. In the future, the kings, Brahmins, and others may encounter ruined, decayed, broken and tumble-down stupas, temples, or images of previous Buddhas and be capable of resolving to restore them. They may then do so themselves or encourage others, as many as 100,000 people, to make offerings and thereby establish affinities. Those kings and the others will become wheel-turning kings throughout 100,000 continuous lives, and those others who make offerings with them will be kings of small countries for 100,000 continuous lives. If, before the stupa or monastery, they are in addition able to resolve to transfer and dedicate the merit, such kings and the other people will without exception accomplish the Buddha path, and their reward for this will be limitless and unbounded. In the future the kings, Brahmins and others are filled with great compassion for the direction of a single thought upon seeing the old, the sick, or women in childbirth, and provided them with medicinal herbs, food, drink and bedding, so as to make them peaceful and comfortable. The blessings and benefits of such activities are quite inconceivable. For 1,000 eons they will constantly be lords of the pure dwelling heaven. For 200 eons, they will be lords in the desire heaven, and they will ultimately attain Buddhahood. They will never fall into the evil paths, and for 100,000 lives, they will hear no sounds of suffering. If in the future, the kings, Brahmins, and others can give in this way, they will receive limitless blessings. If they are in addition able to dedicate that merit, be it great or small, they will ultimately attain Buddhahood. How much more easily will they be able to attain the rewards of becoming Sakra, Brahma, or wheel-turning king? Therefore, Earth Store, you should urge living beings everywhere to learn to perform such actions. In the future if there are good men or good women who plant within the budded Dharma a few good roots, equivalent to no more than a hair or a grain of sand, a mote of dust, the blessings and benefits they will receive will be beyond compare. Good men and women in the future may encounter the image of a Buddha, Bodhisattva, Pratika Buddha, or wheel-turning king, and may give gifts or make offerings, will always be born among humans or gods, and enjoy supremely wonderful bliss. If they can dedicate that merit to the Dharma realm, their blessings and benefits will be beyond compare. Good men or women in the future encounter a great vehicle sutra, and on hearing a single gatha or sentence of it, with dynamic and respectful resolve, praise, venerate and make offerings, those people will attain great, limitless and unbounded rewards. If they can dedicate that merit to the Dharma realm, their blessings will be beyond compare. If in the future good men or good women encounter new Buddha stupas, temples, or sutras of the great vehicle, and make offerings to them, gaze at them in worship, and respectfully make praises with joint palms, or if they encounter old temples, stupas, or those that have been destroyed or damaged, and either repair or rebuild them, such people will be kings of small countries throughout 30 continuous lives. The Dhanapati will always be wheel-turning kings, who moreover, will use the good Dharma to teach and transform those minor kings of small countries. In the future, good men or good women may plant good roots in the budded Dharma by making offerings, repairing stupas or monasteries, rebinding sutras, or they may plant good roots only as small as one strand of hair, one mote of dust, a grain of sand, or a drop of water. Merely by transferring the merit from such deeds to the Dharma realm, those people's meritorious virtues will be such that they will enjoy superior and wonderful bliss for 100,000 lives. If they dedicate the merit only to their own family or relatives, or to their own personal benefit, as a result, they will enjoy the bliss for 3 lives. By giving up one, a 10,000-fold reward is obtained. Therefore, Earth Store, such are the situations pertaining to the causes and conditions of giving. 473. Great gathering for almsgiving. Even though the Buddha always teaches that a bhiksu or bhikshuni who does not focus on the cultivation, but only focuses on charitable works, forcing the Sangha to work so hard that they neglect their cultivation, commits an expression of regret offense. However, according to the Vimalakirti Sutra, he still speaks about the great gathering for almsgiving. Great gathering for almsgiving for all, rich and poor, nominal quinquennial. Once Upasaka of Vimalakirti was sick, the Buddha then said to his son and an elder called Excellent Virut, "You call on Vimalakirti to inquire his health on my behalf." Excellent Virtue said, "World-honored one, I am not qualified to call on him to inquire after his health. The reason is that once I held a ceremonial meeting at my father's house to make offerings to the gods and also to monks, Brahmins, poor people, outcasts and beggars. When the meeting ended 7 days later, Vimalakirti came and said to me, 'O son of the elder, an offering meeting should not be held in the way you did, it should bestow the Dharma upon others, for what is the use of giving alms away?' I asked, 'Venerable Upasaka, what do you mean by bestowal of Dhamma?' He replied, 'The bestowal of Dharma is beyond the element of time, having neither start nor finish, and each offering should benefit all living beings at the same time. This a bestowal of Dharma?' I asked, 'What does this mean?' He replied, 'This means that Bodhi springs from kindness, Maitri, toward living beings. The salvation of living beings springs from compassion, Karuna, the upholding of right Dharma from joy, Mudita, wisdom from indifference, Upekkha, the overcoming of greed from charity perfection, Dana Parmita, ceasing to break the precepts from discipline perfection, Sila Paramita, egolessness from patience perfection, Ksanti Paramita, relinquishment of body and mind from zeal perfection, Virya Paramita, realization of enlightenment from serenity perfection, Dhyana Paramita, realization of all knowledge, Sarvajna, from wisdom perfection, Prajna Paramita. The teaching and converting of living beings spring from the void, non-rejection of worldly activities springs from formlessness, appearance in the world springs from inactivity, sustaining the right Dharma from the power of expedient devices, Upaya, the liberation of living beings from the four winning virtues, respect for and service to others from the determination to wipe out arrogance, the relinquishment of body, life and wealth from the three indestructibles, the 6 thoughts to dwell upon from concentration on the Dharma, the 6 points of reverent harmony in a monastery, form the straightforward mind, right deeds from pure livelihood, joy in the pure mind from nearness to saints and sages, non-rising of hate for bad people from the effective control of mind, retiring from the world from the profound mind, practice in accordance with the preaching from the wide knowledge gained from hearing about the Dharma, absence of disputation from a leisurely life, the quest of Buddha wisdom from meditation, the freeing of living beings from bondage from actual practice, the earning of all excellent physical marks to embellish Buddha lands from the karma of mortal excellence, the knowledge of the minds of all living beings, and the relevant expounding of Dharma to them, from the karma of good knowledge, the understanding of all things commensurate with neither acceptance nor rejection of them to realize their oneness, from the karma of wisdom, the eradication of all troubles, klesa, hindrances and evils from all excellent karmas, the realization of all wisdom and good virtue from the contributory conditions leading to enlightenment. All this, son of good family, pertains to the bestowal of Dharma. A bodhisattva holding this meeting that bestows the Dharma is a great almsgiver, Dhanapati. He is also a field of blessedness for all worlds. World-honored one, as Vimalakirti was expounding the Dharma, 200 Brahmins who listened to it set their minds on the quest of supreme enlightenment. I myself realized purity and cleanness of mind which I had never experienced before. I then bowed my head at his feet and took out my priceless necklace of precious stones which I offered to him, but he refused it. I then said, "Venerable Upasaka, please accept my present and do what you like with it." He took my necklace and divided it in two, offering half to the poorest beggar in the assembly and the other half to the invincible Tathagata, whose radiant land was then visible to all those present, who saw the half-necklace transformed into a precious tower in all its majesty on 4 pillars, which did not shield one another. After this supernatural transformation, Vimalakirti said, "He who gives alms to the poorest beggar with an impartial mind performs an act which does not differ from the field of blessedness of the Tathagata, for it derives from great compassion with no expectation of reward. This is called the complete bestowal of Dharma." After witnessing Vimalakirti's supernatural power, the poorest beggar who had also listened to his expounding of the Dharma developed a mindset on supreme enlightenment. Hence I am not qualified to call on Vimalakirti to inquire after his health. Thus each of the bodhisattvas present related his encounter with Vimalakirti and declined to call on him to inquire after his health. 474. To reach enlightenment and emancipation. It is very important for any Zen practitioners to fix our mind. The more we want enlightenment, the further away it will be. If we want to find a good place to practice Zen, no place we find will be good enough. But if in anywhere we can cut off all thinking and return to beginner's mind, that itself will be a wonderful enlightenment for a Zen practitioner. If we can keep true empty mind, then any place we are is nirvana. So true Buddhist practitioners must strongly keep a closed mouth, and we must only learn from the blue sky, the white clouds, the deep quiet mountains, and the noisy cities. They are just like this. That is our true great teacher. Devout Buddhists should first kill our strong self and find clear mind all the time, then talk about helping all people from sufferings and afflictions. Zen practitioners should always remember that we should not desire to achieve anything, even the attainment of enlightenment or emancipation. The very desire to be free or to be enlightened will be the desire that prevents our freedom. We can try as hard as we wish, practice ardently night and day, but if we still have a desire to achieve something, we will never find peace. Why? Because real wisdom never arises from desires. So, all Zen practitioners need to do is to simply let go everything. Simply watch the body and the mind mindfully, and do not try to achieve anything, even the enlightenment or the emancipation. Never stop paying attention to what is happening in our body and mind, and do not concern about our progress. Let's pay close attention to what is happening in our body and mind, then we will naturally see. Remember, the more we pay attention, the more we will see. And remember, the truth cannot be unfolded when there are still clusters of cloud, even a small cluster of emancipation cloud. Furthermore, the immediate unreflected grasp of reality, without effective contamination and intellectualization, the realization of the relation of oneself to the universe. This new experience is a repetition of the pre-intellectual immediate grasp of the child, but on a new level, that the full development of man's reason, objectively, individuality. While the child's experience, that of immediacy and oneness, lies before the experience of alienation and the subject-object split, the enlightenment experience lies after it. Zen practitioners should always remember that the core of Buddhism is a doctrine of salvation. The need for it arises from the hopelessly unsatisfactory character of the world in which we find ourselves. Buddhists always take an extremely gloomy view of the conditions in which we have the misfortune to live. It is particularly the impermanence of everything in and around us that suggests the worthlessness of our worldly aspirations, which in the nature of things can never lead to any lasting achievement or abiding satisfaction. In the end, death takes away everything we managed to pile up and parts us from everything we cherished. In order to reach enlightenment and emancipation, first of all, Zen practitioners should cultivate or practice mental training, which is carried out for three distinct but interconnected purposes. Zen aims at a withdrawal of attention from its normal preoccupation with constantly changing sensory stimuli and ideas centered on oneself. It aims at effecting a shift of attention from the sensory world to another subtler realm, thereby calming the turmoils of the mind. Sense-based knowledge is as inherently unsatisfactory as a sense-based life. Sensory and historical facts as such are uncertain, unfruitful, trivial, and largely a matter of indifference. Only that is worth knowing which is discovered in meditation, when the doors of senses are closed. The truth of this holy religion must elude the average worldling with his sense-based knowledge and his sense-bounded horizon. It aims at penetrating into the supersensory reality itself, at roaming about among the transcendental facts, and this quest leads it to emptiness, the ultimate reality. This is the end of this video. As you already know, Buddha emphasized the importance of generosity supporting the spread of the Dharma for spiritual growth. We can cultivate this virtue in our digital age. Now I need your help spreading the Buddha teaching further by subscribing, liking, and sharing our channel. You're supporting the dissemination of valuable teachings, much like this Sangha was supported in the past. Your engagement accumulates positive karma for you and helps make the Dharma accessible to a wider audience, a meritorious act indeed. Let's do this with pure intentions, free from attachment and selfishness, fostering a sense of community and supporting our own spiritual journey. These principles, rooted in Buddhist ethics, continue to guide us. You will receive great blessings for supporting the propagation of Buddha's teachings in a very simple way. By subscribing, liking, and sharing to help spreading the Buddha teaching to all human beings. Wishing you and your family always have a peaceful and happy life.